Shalom, shalom, Yisrael, Yehonatan we with you here, humbly so, what they call the 16th of January, 2022. And total to Brother Ron, forgive me that. I tell you, I was asking Gene, you remember Vicky? Everybody knows about BB and CC, but I tell you, I don't really remember Vicky. That's Vicky Winans. And I'm gonna have to start looking at some more of her. But we are now into Ephesus, Kawhalote, HaSheba, what you call the 7 churches, the 7 called out ones. And we did a preview of Ephesus. We're going to go right into it today. This is T minus 90 days to Pesach. Now, the thing about Ephesus, we have a whole lot of information on this assembly. Now, with Ephesus, you want the other mic? This is better?
No, this is causing a big feedback.
Oh, yeah.
You sound like you're echoing because this is interfering with our mic.
Oh, it didn't do that last week.
I was doing it now.
The man just telling me
that sounds better.
Oh, okay, the man just telling me I had some feedback. So, so thanks for fixing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, with Ephesus, we have a whole lot on Ephesus. Shaul actually did a ministry there 35 years before Yachanan's letter. 35 years before this letter in Revelations, he wrote a letter to the Ephesians. And maybe the most important of all his work was this letter. And we find that of these 7 HaKalot, these HaSheba Kawhalote, this is the only one that had a separate letter written to. The other 6 did not. So this is a very important starting point for all of these 7 so-called, what you call churches, these assemblies. And they're not given an order in Revelations according to importance or anything, but it's an order, geographical order. It goes into a circle. But this is a very good start, and you're going to see why. But in starting first, going to Shaul's letter, like I said, it was written 35 years before Revelation. The first chapter off the bat starts off with predestination. And it talks about how we are called before, this is the great covenant before the foundation of the world. How Shaul is saying that they are destined for this purpose. This is their manifest destiny, is to be one with HaMashiach, to learn of him, to love him, to get to know him. And in chapter 2, he talks about the unity of what they call the circumcision and the uncircumcision, the Hebrews and those who grafted in. If there should be a unity, no division, no line, no back and forth, no arguing, no bitterness. We are one. Those grafted in are equal with those who are already in. Those who are in and not accepting Yahweh go out. Now, I do want to go to chapter 3 and read verses 13 to 19 of Ephesians. Chapter 3, verses 13 to 19. And it reads, "Therefore I ask that you do not lose heart at my tribulations, for which is your glory. For this reason I bow my knees to the Father of our Master Yahweh HaMashiach, from whom the whole family in Hashemayim and Eretz is named." The whole family, heaven and earth, are united together in one name in this family. That's what he is saying. "That he will grant you, according to the riches of his glory, to be strengthened with might through Ruach HaKodesh in the inner man." This inner man is the original us. The original us, created from Yahweh without sin. Then verse 17. "That HaMashiach may live in your hearts through faith, that you, being rooted and grounded in love, may be able to comprehend with all the saints, the Kadashim, what is the width and length and depth and height, to know the love of HaMashiach, which passes knowledge, that you may be filled with all the fullness of Yahweh." This love passes created knowledge, and this gives the fullness In other words, this is the unifying entity with Yahweh. This is it right here. And this whole letter is written with passion, deep passion. Let's go to the next chapter and read verses 4 through 6. This is Ephesians 4, and then reading 4 through 6. And it goes, there is one body and one Ruach, just as you were called in one hope of our calling, one master, one faith, one baptism, one Yahweh, Yahweh Echad, one Ab, Father, who is above all and through all and in you all. One. Not everyone segmented and divided, but one. He wrote this with passion. 7 ones. 7. Remember, in Revelations, what you call Revelations, there are 7 Ruachs of Yahweh. And they're manifested in each of these chosen 7 assemblies, these Kawhalote. And every one of us on the earth fits into one of these 7 Kawhalote. One of these Kawhalote HaSheba. And Shaul is saying here 35 years before this letter in so-called Revelations was written that we need to be one, unified. This is the completion of Yahweh. It's us together. Not what we're doing now, not when we're blasting and trashing someone else because they celebrate Easter or Christmas or don't even keep the feast days the way you keep them. And that's what we're doing now. We're going to find ourselves, those of who are not abiding by this, they're going to find themselves on the outside looking in. In chapter 5 of Ephesians, what Shaul does is he talks about the man and the wife as one unit. He's comparing this relationship with Yahweh, which we get through Yahweh Shua. He's saying everything. He's saying Yahweh Shua, and I've been saying this for years, is the X-Man. Everything goes through him to get to Yahweh, and he compares it like a man and a woman, a husband and a wife. And in chapter 6, he says, therefore, just put on the whole armor. We need to have the whole armor put on for protection and keeping us unified together. This is why Adam went after mother Hawa. He was not deceived. He kept her to be unified with her, but he could not save her. Yahweh had to do that, and he did that, and he's in the process of completing all things. This letter indeed, this Ephesonian letter, was written with great passion. 14 times Shaul uses the word ohab, love. 14 times. Only in the book of Yachanan is love mentioned more times. It's mentioned 20 times. And Yachanan is a far bigger book than this one. What is it, almost 30 chapters? And this one only has 6. Now, 1 John, which is also a small letter, also uses the word love 14 times. Yachanan, we know, is full of passion and love. Shaul doesn't talk about love as much, but he does in 1 Corinthians. We're going to finish off with that. But it shows you how much emotion and drive and energy and passion and pleading that this great man of the Besor had for the Ephesonian assembly to love one another, which is going to unify them in the faith. So let's go ahead and read now, 35 years later, Yachanan's letter to this same group that Shaul spent 2.5 years with, by the way. 2.5 years he ministered to this group. In Revelations 2, 1 through 7, and it reads, and this is Yahweh Shua himself talking. To the Malachim of the called out ones of Ephesus write, these things says he who holds the 7 stars in his right hand, who walks in the middle of the 7 golden lampstands. I know your works, your labor, your patience, and that you cannot bear those who are evil. And you have tested those who say they are apostles and are not, and have found them liars. And you have persevered and have patience and have labored for my name's sake, and have not become weary. Nevertheless, I have this against you, that you have left your first love. What? You have left your first love. Remember therefore from where you have fallen, how far you have fallen. Repent and do the first works, or else I will come to you quickly and remove your lampstand from its place, unless you repent. But this you do have, that I hate, that you hate the deeds of the Nicolaitans, which I also hate. He who has an ear, let him hear what Ruach has to say to the called out ones. To him who overcomes, I will give to him the right to eat of the tree of life, which is in the middle of the paradise of Yahweh. Wow. He gave them a lot of kudos of how hard they work and how strong they work and how faithful they have been. They have not fallen even in persecution, and they are full of the knowledge. And this called out, this group to me is maybe the most dangerous of all of them. We know only one of them was not called out, and that's the called out ones of Philadelphia. But this one, because this one is good. They vet out the false leaders. They vet them out. They match them up against the Torah and find them wanting, and they keep them apart. They are strong in knowledge. They know the Torah. They know the 613. And they hate the Nicolaitans. And we're going to talk about them. They hate that doctrine. They are strong in the 613. But what did Yahushua say? He himself said out of his own mouth, they have fallen so far away. So far away from who? From him. Yahushua is love. Yahweh is love. So if all their works and all their knowledge and all their gaining and all their understanding, they had no love. They had knowledge sans love. So this is a big strike, because what does it matter? HaSatan has knowledge. There is not a living man born of a woman who has more knowledge of the Bible, of the Torah, of the written word than HaSatan. So it's not knowledge that's going to get you into the kingdom. Knowledge is not enough. You have to have Ohab. You have to have love. Yahushua says this is cause you to fall so far away from me. When you read this Bible, I was listening to a speaker a couple days ago. He said you must use your imagination, not to change the altered word, but to get yourself into this word when you read it. When you read it, and read the book of Ephesians, by the way, it's only 6 chapters. What are you going? How much time does that take? And read it out aloud, out of your mouth for your ears to hear, and hear the passion in it. Hear the energy and the passion in that letter, and then read the account of the Thessalonians in Revelations 2:1-7. We're going to see that this is the problem with this group is a problem of the heart, not the problem of the knowledge, but a problem of what they do with the knowledge. What does the knowledge do for them intimately, personally? The very name Ephesus means desirable. The name of the group itself means desirable. Yahushua desires this group. Yet they are the loveless Kodashim. Saints, as you would call them. They are the loveless Kodashim. This letter is written to the loveless ones. And it reminded me immediately when I was reading this of the rich young ruler in the book of Mark 10:17-22. So you can read it to refresh yourself on a memory of it. But the rich young ruler came to Yahushua, and he came to him passionately, fell on his feet. Oh, Master, he acknowledged who he was. What can I do to be saved? Yahushua told him, hey, you keeping the commandments? He list the top 10 on the 613. He said, I got that. I got that in spades. I'm doing that. But one thing he lacked the love. He loved the things of the earth more than the things of Yahweh. He was keeping the law. He knew it better than we do. But he turned away because he didn't want to give up what he had to follow Yahweh, even though he had all the knowledge. This knowledge, the 613, gets you to Yahweh. Once you get to him, what are you going to do? You need to hold on to him. And that's what's going to be the problem after the millennial kingdom. They're going to have 1,000 years of knowledge, perfect knowledge, with no competition. Hasatan is locked away, no competition. But then when the man himself shows up, that they've been studying for 1,000 years, are they going to continue trying to live by this righteousness through all eternity? Or are they going to accept Yahweh? Do you realize that's what it actually is at the end? The acceptance of the man himself, or the objects of the man? I think you want to accept the man. At the Ephesians, this was a special, unique place. This is where Yochanan left Mother Miriam. Remember, he was the one left in charge of Mother, what you call Mary, Yahweh's mother. She was left to Yochanan to take care of until her dying days. Once Yochanan was arrested and burned in oil, which he survived, and they couldn't try to kill him again, not legally, because he already survived his first death sentence. So they banished him to the island of Patmos. And after doing that, he sent Mother Miriam off to the Ephesians to take care of her to her last days. Why there? Because this was a passionate group. And us also was the closest of the assemblies to the island of Patmos, by the way. This is the closest one to the island of Patmos. And he left in good hands. They actually had the mother, the matrix, the womb of the one who birthed the object of their love, the object of their desire. She was living amongst them. Remember, it's the woman's seed that crushed Hasatan's head. And here she is. She lived out her last days with the Ephesian group. And this is while Yochanan was on the island of Patmos, this is an island that's over 3,000 years old by this time. By this time, long and uninhabitable. Now it was an outpost for the harsh prisoners to die there, really. They worked the mine quarries, harsh labor, and then they died there. But a 3,000-year-old island is where he wrote this letter from to the Ephesians, which in itself was a city over 1,000 years old. How old is the country of America? This city of 250,000 souls, by the way. That's huge for that time in history. That's like having a city of millions today. Was 1,000 years old. 1,000 years old, more than 3 times older than this country, which today it's modern Turkey. And it was a major port city, and it was a very important place. And they had a very vibrant, rich, loving assembly here, teaching the word of Yahweh and the love of Yahweh. In this very important town, remember, this is a town that had that building, the Temple of Artemis, which the Romans renamed after Diana. And if you read the narrative in Acts about this, how they, in shouting down Shaul, called out her name for 2 to 3 hours. Hail to Diana, hail to Diana, hail to Diana, for hours on end, yelling and screaming. Right here at the Temple of Artemis, which they had renamed Diana. This temple was one of the 7 ancient wonders of the world. One of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. And it was 750 years old at the time of this letter to the Ephesians. Again, this is something that's over 2.5 times the age of this country. This building alone was a citadel, a hallmark, a bastion of idolatry and worship at that time. The oldest building, I looked this up, the oldest building in America is about 400 years old. This building was 750 years old. So this is a very important place during this time, this city of Ephesus. And to have a group in this place was very important. I mean, you have a group calling on the name of the Most High Yah right in the middle of hell. Right in the middle. And like I said, this is where Paul spent 2.5 years. But guess what? After 2.5 years of probably the greatest apostle of them all, arguably the greatest apostle of them all, and all the other fathers who had been there, and all the work that was done with these people who had great knowledge, in just 215 years, there was not one Nazarite believer to be found in the whole town of 250,000 people. Not openly anyway. There was no open group worshiping in the name of Yahweh in just 15 years later. Can you believe that? To me, that's astounding. With all the great work that was done in this town, with all the great miracles, having the mother of Yahweh herself in her years there. Shaul spent 2.5 years there. 215 years later, they finally succumbed to the doctrine of the Nicolaitans. Let's look at some of the history of this place. Let's go to Acts 6 and 5. How did this happen? How did this place fall? How did this group fall in just 215 years? Now, if you look at the history of Catholicism, you know, it constantly had letters from the likes of Ignatius and Polycarp and all these early fathers and bastions of strength for the Catholic faith. Finally, they wore them down because this was a stronghold for Yahweh. Obviously, Hasatan sent out his heavy hitters to this place. But how did he start this? Let's go to Acts 6 and 5. And it reads, and this is talking about the how our early fathers of the faith, when given the ministry, they were not able to also serve tables, and they had to choose some righteous men to help them with this job of serving tables. So I'm skipping all the way down to verse 5. And this saying, they had a meeting and say, okay, we're going to choose righteous men to go in and serve the people while we deliver the word. So verse 5 reads, and the saying pleased the whole multitude, and they chose Stephen, and we know him, the first martyr for Yahweh, young man about 17 to 19 years old, a man full of faith and of Ruach HaKodesh. That was Stephen. But then he also chose Philip, Prochorus, Nicanor, Timon, Parmenius, and Nicholas. Who was Nicholas? A proselyte from Antioch. Antioch, huge. I could spend a whole broadcast talking about Antioch and the history of Antioch, how important that is to this whole faith. So he's a proselyte. Now, only 2 people of this group, and these are all 7 highly righteous men, only 2 people in this group that even give a talk about, and that was Stephen, said he was a man full of faith, and then Nicholas, and they emphasized that he was a proselyte for Antioch. That's important. That's why it's in there. That's why it's in the record. Let you know that this is deep. This is more than just what you're reading right here. This goes to something deeper. Okay. Now let's go to Jude 1 and 4. We're going to talk about how did the believers in Ephesus fall, and the beginning seed of it was right there in Acts 6:5 with this man Nicholas. Jude 1:4, and it reads, for certain men have crept in unnoticed, who long ago were marked out for this condemnation, unrighteous men who turned the grace of our Father Yahweh into lewdness and deny the only Master Yahweh and our Master Yahweh HaMashiach. Nicholas is this type of soul that Yehuda was talking about. This man who snuck in unawares. You remember, even Isaac was fooled by his son Esau. They fooled the first fathers. He fooled them. Nicholas fooled them like he was a good believer. And he probably was. I'm sure he was. But he was sifted like wheat by Hasatan. And he used his office to get in and cause a wedge with the people. He used the office he was anointed for, he was given to do, to start causing a wedge. He started having itching ears to the universal religion of the Catholicism. That's what he started doing. And it all starts at the table. Of course, he's not going to do it while they're teaching the word. It's when they're finished teaching the word, then he get in and sneaks in his doctrine, the things that he thinks he knows, the things that he has learned. Let's continue on down in this same book to verses 11 through 13. Woe to them, for they have gone in the way of Cain, have run greedily in the error of Balaam for profit, and perish in the rebellion of Korah. These are spots in your love feast. This is what Yehuda is calling them. While they feast with you without fear, serving only themselves, they are clouds without water, carried about by the winds, late autumn trees without fruit, twice dead, pulled up by the roots. Raging waves of the sea, foaming up their own shame, wandering stars from whom is reserved the blackness of darkness forever. Wow. Anybody being given that vitriol of words is not good. Can you say harsher words against this type of person? Remember, Yahushua says that the one good thing about the Ephesians was they hated the doctrine of the Nicolaitans. The Nicolaitans. I keep saying Nickelodeon. The Nicolaitans. They hated the doctrine of the Nicolaitans. Yet one of them has sneaked into their group, to their assembly. And Yehuda is speaking strongly against this doctrine of the Nicolaitans. These words are vitriol, strong, because he knows, Yehuda being a brother of Yahushua, raised in the same house as Yahushua, knows how just a little inch given into Hasatan will make him your ruler. 1 inch of Hasatan will make him your ruler. And this is how he snuck in. Not with trying to challenge the doctrine, but by giving in his doctrine after the sermons were over, while they were having their dinner, before the next sermon. We do it all the time. We have our worship service, then we go away to eat, and then we come back and we have another worship service. It's at that time that this doctrine was given in. Let's get another witness. 2 Peter. Let's get another witness. Because Peter is strong against them too. 2 Peter, because they know how this thing begins. Remember what Shaul said 7 times. 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. That's what we must be. Echad. One doctrine. 2 Peter 2, 15 and 19. 2 Peter 2, verse 15. Then I'm going to read verse 19. They have forsaken, talking about these false teachers here. They have forsaken the right way and gone astray, following the way of Balaam, the son of Beor, who loved the wages of unrighteousness. Go down to verse 19. While they promise the liberty, they themselves are slaves of corruption. For by whom a person is overcome, by him also he is brought into bondage. Just like Yehuda said, and compared him to Balaam. We know what Balaam did. These must be watched for with a discerning eye to weed them out of your congregation. Those who have the knowledge of the word, they can slice and dice the word, but then they want to go ahead and put in doctrine that denies Yahushua as being who he said he is. Remember, when the rich young ruler came up to Yahushua, he called him a good man. Yahushua said, there's none good but Yahweh. In other words, he's saying, either I am Yahweh, who created you, or I'm not. I'm not just no good man. You're not going to put me on the level of a good man. I am the creator. That's what he was telling the rich young ruler. And any ministry you have, if it is not founded on Yahushua, whatever you're talking about does not speak to Yahushua, it is anti-Messianic. And you might not think it's doing well. You got a lot of likes, a lot of followers, and it's doing well. does not mean that Yahweh co-signs on it. Just because it does not get judged immediately does not mean that it is co-signed by Yahweh. If it's not about him, it is a waste of time. Noah did not talk about nothing else for 120 years but getting to that T-boat, getting to the boat. Jonah did not talk about nothing else but repent. When Yahweh sent off the woman at the well, she did not talk about nothing else but that this was the Messiah. There was nothing else to talk about. The ministries need to stop with all this other stuff and realize that we are in the gas fumes of the last days. But you're not realizing it because you're not having discernment, because we're too caught up in the leaves of life instead of looking at the roots of what's going on. At the root is Hasatan's world, who hates us. And we keep forgetting that because we have jobs to go to, because we have a right to vote. Because you can go ahead and have a social page and have a lot of people follow you, and you think that things are not as bad as they are. Our souls are at stake here. Our souls are at stake. And if this group could fall apart in just 215 years, how about the group that you're with? Because I know groups like this who know the word and don't have a bit of love in them. As soon as you open the door to go in, hate comes out and greets you. But they know their word though. They keep all those feast days. They know that 613, and they preach it strong, hard, and long, and don't have an ounce of love. And they're going to find themselves on the outside. They are like Yehuda said, there are storms without water, twice dead to the root. See, the name Nicholas actually means one who conquers the people. That's what the name means. And remember, Yahweh said they have fallen from their first love, which is Yahweh. And when they fell from him, they fell right into the lap of the one who conquers the people. They finally allowed themselves to be sifted and fallen. They have fallen far, Yahweh says, from where they came from, which was the love of him. That's how they was able to thrive in the shadows of the Temple of Artemis. In the thriving, bustling town of 250,000 people, this righteous pearl was in the mud in the middle there, in love. In love. But forgot the one thing. What did Eve have to go up against? One thing. Didn't she have knowledge? Oh, she had knowledge. No, we cannot eat that from the tree. And matter of fact, we can't even touch it. There you go. There you go. Yahweh ain't say nothing about not touching it. Although, why should you touch it? But he didn't say that. So you're going to go, there you go. Add knowledge to your knowledge. And the one thing she was told not to do, she did. The one thing we are called to do today is to love Yahweh and love your neighbor, who is made after the image of Yahweh. We are in the age of man where there's only one thing: Yahweh's image or Hasatan's image. And Hasatan's image looks just like Yahweh's image. That's why it takes Ruach HaKodesh to discern between the two. Don't get caught up in this world's narratives. Nicholas became an apostate and used his position to teach the doctrine of Balaam. And he did it over the table. See, the very thing about Balaam was offering of idols and sexual immorality, blasphemy and fornication. These are the grounds for stoning. This is why Yahweh is going to rain down hailstones, the weight of the menorah, 100-pound hailstones, on those who blaspheme and fornicate. And it all begins with this doctrine of the Nicolaitans. And it's an insidious doctrine that you don't even see coming. The very word Nicola, the root of it means let us eat. Let us eat. This goes to the rub of it. The rub. Romans 16 and 18, Shaul talks about those who live according to their belly. The same in Philippians 3:19. Those who are living their life based on their belly. Is that what many of us out there doing now? Many so-called Hebrews? They're going to make decisions such as, what's going on now, what's the big story now is the COVID and the shots, based on keeping a job. So you mean your employer is the one who feeds you. People have all kinds of opinions or even facts on the mark of the beast. But here's one thing that's not arguable. The bottom line about the mark of the beast is that if you go along with it, you're still able to buy and sell. In other words, if you go along with the mark of the beast, you're still able to live your life. And living your life means continue to go on and do all the things you did, for instance, before COVID. Fly where you want to fly to, go to what game, stadium, wherever you want to go to what restaurant. You can still buy and sell, keep your job. But those who refuse the mark of the beast are limited. They're not able to live their lives. If you don't bow down to the idol, you get lopped off. You're not allowed to join in on the reindeer games unless you accept the mark of the beast. That means, are you going to live by your belly or not? Is Yahweh your provider or not? That's what it boils down to. And this doctrine of the Nicolaitans is just that. It doesn't look like that in the beginning. It's insidious. It's small like a mustard seed. And it grows to a huge tree, so much so that just 215 years later, this group, this assembly, was dust. It was gone. Because they didn't hold on to their first love. The Hebrew word equivalent to the Greek word Nicholas is Balaam. Nicholas means ones who conquers the people. Balaam means the master over the people. This is the people being conquered by the doctrine that's not of Yahweh. Not holding on to the doctrine of Yahweh. Numbers 22, 30, 31, and 8. You can read about the whole thing. We know we read about Balaam. We know about what he did. He was not able to curse the people. When Yahweh blesses something, it cannot be cursed. So what he did was he went through the back door. We know going through the back door ain't good. Going through the back door is not proper. If you guys are going through some other way, then you're a thief or a robber. That's what Yahweh said. If you come in any kind of way at him, other than the front door, you are a thief or a robber. So what he did was he subverted our families by having us curse ourselves. And do we not still do that? The N word, the B word, wear it with pride, and we out there social media blasting our brother, blasting our sister. We're cursing ourselves using lashon hara, the evil tongue, the tongue of evil and wickedness against ourselves, cursing ourselves because Hasatan cannot get to us. We have to curse ourselves. Once you curse yourself, then you erode. The family's eroded, the foundation is taken from under you, and you crash, and it's a mighty thunderous crash. And this is what the doctrine of the Nicolaitans did. It's the same doctrine as the doctrine of Balaam. Hasatan had it work in the Old Testament, and he used it again to work in the New Testament. And he used it against the Ephesians, who was a bastion of strength, and fell apart to the doctrine of the Nicolaitans, a loveless doctrine. And this, to show you how, remember, it talks about the 7 ruachs of Yahushua. There's 7 spirits of Yahushua, and he sends this word out to 7 different called out ones, 7 different assemblies, HaSheba assemblies. And each one of us fits into one of these 7. Everybody wants to think they're in the one of Philadelphia, and it's laughable. That's why everybody thinks they Judah, and buying their hats and t-shirts and beating their chest. Everybody wants to be so proud, thinking you're Judah, thinking you're in the faith of Philadelphia, thinking you're worshiping with the Philadelphians. But the meek will inherit the earth. We need to stop thinking more highly of ourselves than we are. We need to seriously examine ourselves like Dawid says. Search my heart, try me, prove there's any wicked way in me. And when we do that, we will fall at Yahweh's feet and humble ourselves. The rich young ruler came at him with knowledge of the 613. But when he had to give up all of what he knew, all of what he had, to follow Yahweh Shua, he didn't do it. In year 280 AD was born Saint Nicholas. The Catholics made he was a monk, a Catholic monk born in 280 AD in Patara, which is by the Aegean Sea in Turkey. The same the same area that this letter comes from, that Shaul wrote to and that Yochanan wrote to. The same area. This is where Saint Nicholas was born and raised. And what he did was he gave away all of his inherited wealth and traveled the countryside helping the poor and the sick. And he just loved the children's. He just loved the children's. He was made a saint by the Catholicism, and his death celebrated as a feast on December 6th. And then if you want to go into looking up Saint Nick, you're going to go, it goes all the way down to the story of Christmas and how Christmas evolved, and goes on and on from there. I'm not going to even waste time talking about that. You're going to do the research on yourself. But this shows that this land here, this area in Ephesus, this Paul was over them. This Nicolaitan Paul, this curse was over this area. They would breed somebody like Saint Nick, which became ground zero for Christmas. And to this day, many of us are still under that curse. All why? Because we fell away from our first love, the love of Yahweh Shua. And he says, if you repent and have an ear to hear what he's saying, he's going to let you go back to that tree. And this time, instead of partaking of the tree of Tob and Ra, partake of the tree of life, like we were told to do in the first place. The Ephesians had felt smug and secure because they had the likes of Yochanan there with them. They had Yahweh Shua's mother herself with them. They had Shaul with them. They had such great wealth of knowledge and education that many rich were amongst their believers. They had a thriving port city. They had good jobs. They were doing well. They knew so much. And they fell away. They took their groom for granted. They took him for granted. Do you take him for granted? And Shaul compared this group as a husband and a wife. Do you take your husband for granted? Do you take your wife for granted? Do you still love them as you did when you first said, I do? Let's go to 1 Corinthians 13. Because as much kudos as Yahweh Shua gave these group, it was not good ultimately, because they eventually fell to the Nicolaitan doctrine, and they fell because they didn't have this. 1 Corinthians 13, we know it well, the love chapter. Though I speak with the tongues of men and of the Malachim, but have not Ohab, which you call love, I have become sounding brass or a clanging cymbal. You know what that is? That means you're noise. You're a bunch of noise. A dissonant, ear-shattering, hurting, noxious noise. If you go about in your ministry with no love, no Ohab. And though I have the gift of prophecy, and understand all mysteries and all knowledge, and though I have all faith so that I could remove mountains, but have not love, I am nothing. And though I bestow all my goods to feed the poor, isn't that what Saint Nicholas did? Old Saint Nick. And though I give my body to be burned, isn't that how Polycarp died? Or some of these first century Catholic fathers, second century Catholic fathers, let themselves be burned? Can you believe that? How many of us out there are willing to have our bodies burned? Burned. Yet there are those out there who did allow their bodies to be burned, but not for love, for a show, to be seed for Catholicism, to be seed for Nicolaitan doctrine. And it grew, and it crushed the true believers after just 215 years. Ohab, which you call love. Ohab suffers long and is kind. Ohab does not envy. Ohab does not parade itself. It is not puffed up. does not behave rudely, does not seek his own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in the truth. It does not go on social media and rejoices over someone falling. Does not blast people who are not there where you are yet, as if you didn't have it given to you, as if you weren't once wearing your Easter suit, if you wasn't once going under the Christmas tree for your gifts, if you weren't once not keeping the feast days, as if you hadn't learned anything, as if you never got baptized in the name of the Lord God Jesus Christ. Love doesn't do that. Ohab does not do that. It does not behave rudely. This is what Ohab does do. Ohab suffers long and is kind. Ohab does not envy. Ohab does not parade itself, is not puffed up, does not behave rudely. I see a lot of rudeness out there. Does not seek his own, is not provoked, thinks no evil, does not rejoice in iniquity, but rejoices in truth, bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. Love never fails. But whether there are prophecies, they will fail. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away. Because we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when that which is perfect has come, then that which is in part will be done away. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, understood as a child, I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. We will behold him, like Vicky Winer said. When he comes, we're going to be changed in a moment of twinkling of an eye. We're going to see him as he is, and we're going to look like him. Right now, things are only known partially. But when the completeness comes, we're going to know completely and fully in love. Right now, we got people who are supposed to be mature in the word. You got 10, 15, 20 years in the word, and you're still blasting and cursing. The tongue was made for blessings, y'all. The book of James, Jacob, Yahushua's other brother. Jacob tells us the tongue is not meant for blessing and cursing. Control that little member in the middle of your face. Control it, direct it, subject it to the Ohab, the love of Yahushua. Otherwise, you're following the doctrine of Nicolaitans, the doctrine of Balaam, and you're sifting the families, you're breaking families apart. Families are eroding and falling apart and breaking apart because you're not teaching love. With all your knowledge, grow up. Grow up. Be a man. Stop being a boy. Be a woman. Stop being a little girl. Grow up. Show some maturity in the word of Yahweh. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. I stopped dividing. I realized that we are one. 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 7 times Shaul said to be one together in Yahushua. Read all of the book of Ephesians and read it aloud for your ears to hear. It's about Yahushua being the crux of all things. In verse 12, 1 Corinthians, the love chapter 13, finishing out in verse 12 and 13. For now we see in a mirror, dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, but then I will know, just as I also am known. And now abide faith, hope, Ohab, love. These 3. But the greatest of these is Ohab, love. So simple. Eat from that tree, don't eat from that one. So simple. And they failed in that one thing. And what are you doing today in so-called the 16th of January 2022? You're failing, Yisrael. You're failing in one thing. Love Yahweh and love his image. Love Yahweh and love his image. That's the whole doctrine of Yahushua. He told the rich young ruler that, follow me. He ain't say, put your tzitzis on. He ain't check his pecker to see if he was circumcised. It's the following the love of Yahushua HaMashiach. It's amazing how much I find myself evolving as I call myself teaching here. As I learn and realize that the flavor and the spirit of this ministry, Yahweh for Christians, you see how it has changed and evolved over time. It is one with less condemnation. less vitriol, condemnation and judgment. Because like the record says, if you're going to judge the law, who made you a judge over the law? The law is this. Yahweh Eloheinu Echad. He is one. Who are you to divide and split and put down your brother and your sister who's not where you are right now, but who is where you were at one time? And if you live righteously in immaturity where you are now, you're not going to be tomorrow. You're supposed to be ever evolving and growing. And look for the face. Yahweh sure says, seek my face. Look for my face. He didn't say slander your brother. Slander your sister. Break apart the family. There's going to be a whole lot of people with big heads of knowledge burning in hell. Burning in hell because they have fallen so far from where they originally came from when they learned of the name of Yahweh Shua. When they first learned of the doctrine that what? Salvation in this man? And they received him in love. They got baptized in love of him. Then they started smelling themselves. They forgot that their poop stinks. They got used to their own stench and forgot where they came from. Oh, how far, as the record says, you have fallen. But guess what? If you teshua, if you repent, if you turn from your wicked ways, your ways of self-righteousness, then what does the record say? The record says that he who has an ear, let him hear what Ruach says to the called out ones. To him who overcomes. Remember, overcoming the world. He said, fear not, for God has already overcome the world. This world is a bloodthirsty world, a world of hate. You have to overcome hate. You have to overcome hate. Sane is the Hebrew word for it. Sane. And those who are in their sane mind are in a hateful mind. To him who overcomes, I will give to him to eat of the tree of Kai. The tree of life that was offered in the beginning. In the garden. That we were too busy frolicking, having fun, and didn't have time to do that. But we did find ourselves to have time to try to outwit HaSatan with our knowledge. Oh no, we're not supposed to eat from that tree. As a matter of fact, HaSatan, if you should know, you're not even supposed to touch it. There we go. Nowhere in the record from A to Z, from Aleph to Tau, you told to argue with the devil. Thus saith Yahweh, get behind me, HaSatan, and you keep it moving. Once he gets you in a discourse, you've already lost. Because that two-tongued man has more experience than any man with the word. With the word of Yah. What he can't do is what you can do. Is to teshuva, is to repent, is to turn and honor Yahweh Shua HaMashiach. That's what he can't do. You are told to put on the whole armor of Yahweh and stand. Not fight. Not fight. Because this is not a battle you can win. This is spiritual wickedness in high places. He is the prince of the air. It's not a physical battle. The battle you have is the one you see in the mirror. Open your mouth, stick out your tongue. Control it. Rule over it. Subject it for the purpose of fruitfulness in Yahweh Shua HaMashiach. He says that I give them they have access to the tree of life, which is in the middle of the paradise of Yahweh. Right in the middle, right there, Yahweh Shua says he is in the middle of the seven spirits, the seven candlesticks, the seven ruachs of Yahweh Shua. And in the middle of them, he finds that we are all supposed to be part of his body. And we all make his building for him to house himself into. That is the whole purpose of us being one. One solid house for him to reside in us. one body, one mind, one soul, one faith, one belief. Now next week, Smyrna, the persecuted Kawhalote. And once again, I want to give Toda to Woody's Lawn Care, Rod's Purified Water, Just Deals, and Naturally Whipped. You can find them all on Facebook. Until next week, Yohanatan Dawit with you here. Shalom Aleichem. Peace be on you.